You're listening to the Breakaway Wealth Podcast, the show that helps you build wealth faster, think outside the box, and break out of the herd. Here's your host, Jim Oliver.
Welcome back, Breakaway Wealth. I'm your host, Jim Oliver, and with me today, Jack Bosch. Welcome, Jack.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
You know, Jack, when I was a kid, they had Bosch. Am I saying that right? Because that's how you would say the brand. And I've got your name all over my kitchen. You know, when I moved into this house, it was a model, so I didn't get to pick. Thank goodness I didn't get to pick like the Wolf and Sub-Zero and everything else. So all my appliances are Bosch, which they've been great. So I just want to make sure I'm saying it correctly.
You said it correctly, and I'm actually from Germany. My hometown is probably 2-hour drive away from the Bosch headquarters, world headquarters, but I'm unfortunately not related to them. My dad did some ancestry research and went back all the way 300 years and still no relationship to the Bosches.
Trying to find something there we can get some inheritance from right now.
Exactly. Nothing there.
I have something near and dear to me in Germany right now, and it's a new M5, the 2025 M5, and I'm in the paint phase. So my car will be here by January, but I'm a big fan of German cars. I love German engineering, and I'm more of a BMW guy than a Mercedes guy because, man, that M5 is like a race car, but it doesn't look like that. I'm not really a flashy guy, so it just looks like a sedan. But it'll beat most McLarens and everything else, especially if you do a little bit of tuning to it.
That is right. Yeah, it's a beautiful
Jack,
car.
We're not here to talk about my car or appliances. We're here to talk about what you help people with and how you serve people to help them become financially independent and have an abundance mindset like you. And I want to hear a little bit about you and what you do.
All right, wonderful. Well, so first of all, I'm excited to be here. And my name is Jack Bosch, as I mentioned already, from Germany. And what I do is I'm now an American citizen, been here in the country for 27 years. And we do what I do and my wife does. We're doing this together with our team. We do land flipping, as we call it, which is land wholesaling, land seller financing, land splitting. So we basically do land investing, but in a way that it's completely location independent, completely hands off, virtual land flipping. So we sit in Phoenix, Arizona, do land deals all over the country without ever seeing them. And basically we specialize into finding people that have pieces of land usually worth between $30,000 and $1 million. And that they're not willing, they don't want them anymore. They're sick and tired of paying property taxes, sick and tired of just like the maintenance if it's in a city. They perhaps have inherited the land. They don't want to pay those fees anymore. Perhaps gotten it through divorce. Or perhaps they had plans for the land and those plans have changed. And they're just willing to get rid of this land. They're emotionally not attached to them. And we pick those pieces of land up. We've developed a method to pick those pieces of land up for anywhere between usually 10 and 60 cents on the dollar. And then turn around and sell them either by wholesaling them. So we take a $60,000 property, put it under contract for 20, put them on the market for 40 and make a quick 20 grand. Or turn around or do a deal like sell them with seller financing. So you take a $50,000 property, put it under contract for 15, sell it for 50 with a 30% down payment, which is $15,000. So basically the down payment covers what you have to pay the seller for. And now they still owe you $35,000 and they paid it off in monthly payments of $500 for the next 10, 12 years. And you create a cash flow without actually any tenants, toilets, and termites. That's what we do. We've built that to over 5,000 deals, my wife and I. And for the last 16 years, we've also been teaching that and created over 1,000 millionaires with us already.
Really? Wow. That's pretty cool. Okay, there's a lot to unpack there. So one is I've heard of people doing this before. I've heard of people selling courses and everything else. And, like the one thing that it's tough. And so I want to say, this isn't tough, but it's tough when you sell somebody a course because I know when I do a course, I want somebody to take the information that I teach them, or when I coach somebody, I want them to take the information that I've learned and I want them to do it 10 times better than I've ever thought about doing it. Right. And so you can lead Nelson Nash, the guy that created infinite banking concept. That's one of the things that we show people how to do is he always said you could lead a horse to water, but you can't make it think. And I
Right.
like to add, and you definitely can't make it act, right? You can't make it take action. So, one, I want to dive into that a little bit more, because that's a pretty amazing track record to have 1,000 millionaires. And I love this because you know what I love about it is I love anything with recurring cash flow. And if you know I'm going to get that money for the next 10 to 12 years, right? And then I add another one, then I add another one, then I add another one. And, a scarcity mindset says, well, what am I going to do in 10 to 12 years? Well, you're not going to stop adding these things, right? And so I want you to talk about the market that's out there. But first, I want you to talk about what makes those people. Is it the system that you teach them? Is it just that good? And I'm sure that it is. But like, for people to take action, how long does it take for them to get? I'm asking you a bunch of questions, so I'm going to let you kind of riff here for a second. How long does it take them to get up and running? How much money does it cost them to get started? And like, that's an incredible. I mean, good for you. I mean,
That's
that
you hit right into the heart of the question. Really, does educational material, or does coaching, or does how to information work? And the answer is, it works if you work it, right? The answer is, there's no such thing like a get rich quick program anywhere out there. There's even our program is not a wake up wealthy. Like, you don't just buy it and then the next morning you wake up and you're wealthy. It requires work. The thing is behind the reason why some people succeed and some people don't is very simply usually defined that by their personality, and also by their habits, and also how they're wired. So we do, particularly in our coaching program, like a home study course, the statistics are horrible, to be honest. The statistics on a home study course, any home study course I've ever seen, is that 50% of the people don't ever even open the shrink wrap. If like today it's not even shrink wrap, it's online. But back in the days, it was like shrink wrap. They were just putting it, would become shelf help, as it's saying. They put it in the bookshelf, never even open it. So obviously you can't succeed that way. Then of the other 50%, probably 2/3 or 3/4, they go to 2-3 modules and then they get sidetracked and just and I'm like that. I'm the worst home study course buyer in the world, because I got some program the other day, like a few months ago. I got a program, 24 modules. I've gone through 5, and I don't even find the link anymore to it. I mean, I can find it for sure. So what we have done in order to drive our success, we have our programs are a little bit more upscale. Our programs are very much human interaction based, because I think that's the answer to success. So, for example, we start with one thing. Have you heard of the Kolbe test with Kolba?
huge fan of the Kolbe.
Great, we are too. Every one of our team members does the Kolbe, and every one of our students does the Kolbe.
Yeah.
So
nice.
as a result, if somebody is, and if the Kolbe is like something, if somebody is like a 8825, meaning like they're highly detailed, highly organized, they are physically incapable of taking action until they have their questions answered and until things are organized. The problem is that most people that teach any how-to information are go-getter quick starts. They don't need much information. They just in chaos figured this somehow out and then went for it. And they expect everyone else to implement it the way they have implemented it, with a little bit more structure and so on. But that doesn't work for those kind of people. The people that are highly the engineering kind of type, the highly detailed, highly organized person, you need to meet them where they are. So one of the reasons we're so successful is that we meet people where they are. Doesn't mean that everyone is forced to eat up a whole bunch of detail and organize it all. What we do is we have everyone take that test. Our coaches are Kolbe trained. So if we have a coach that's highly detailed and highly organized and get put together with a maverick, which rarely happens because we usually match them up such that it makes sense. But if they get matched up with somebody that's different, then our coach can adjust his own teaching style to meet the student where the student need to be met. And I think that's one of the key principles, because any strategy out there works. Any real estate strategy out there works. Just most real estate strategies are not presented in a way that they meet the person's needs. And as a result, the people feel really they have a really hard time taking that next step and taking action. That's one of the things we do really, really well. And then we also have, for example, we have a team member in our team that's an accountability partner. So what that means is that we constantly measure who is attending, who is showing up for their coaching calls, who is showing up for the group coaching calls, who is booking their one-on-ones with their coach. And if we see that somebody's falling off the bandwagon, that the notification gets sent to Sarah. Sarah is our accountability partner, and she starts hounding those people and calling them and emailing and texting them and sending them DMs on Facebook and say like, "Hey, where are you? You enrolled in this program and we don't see you. What are you doing? Do you need a quick call?" And she's reviving a whole bunch of these students that otherwise would just fall off the bandwagon, because motivation is like deodorant. You really need it every day. And if you don't have it, for like, if for some reason something happens in your life, we all know how hard it is. You go into let's say you get on a fitness trip, you go get fit, and you go 3, 4, 5 weeks, and then you get injured.
Mm-hmm.
And after injury is over 2 weeks, 80% of the people don't get back on the horse and start going again because they got sidetracked. Well, that happens in life all day long with any program you do. Well, we have put intervention spots in there to make sure that if you fall off the bandwagon, we get you right back on, and so on and so forth. So we've built a lot of such things around our businesses in order to make sure that human nature, which is to deviate and fall off, doesn't succeed, but instead you actually get pushed through, because you're going through a process of inner change while you're going through this process of going from an employee to an entrepreneur, from not being successful financially to being successful financially. It's an internal change as much as it's an external change, and that requires a lot more interaction and accountability and us coming in and making sure you take that next step.
Jack, it's weird. You mean you're just not trying to sell courses and who cares whether somebody actually completes it or not? You're actually like, I'm just telling you, when I'm sitting here listening to you, I think I've interviewed a lot of people that are coaches, and Dan Sullivan, strategic coach, introduced me to the Kolbe.
Yeah, same here.
30 years ago or whatever, 1992 or 4 or something like that. And it's, you have to accept what you do well and what you don't do well. You have to know your unique ability, as he calls it, or your genius, or unique genius, or your, whatever people call it, right? But I'll tell you, here's my Kolbe: 3, 2, 10, 3. That means I'm not implementing anything. I'm not following through on anything. I'm the visionary. I will come up with the vision. I will create the vision. And then if I'm not smart enough to get a team together to do the fact finding, the follow through, the implementation, nothing's going to happen. Right? Yeah. And I can make some big visions, but if I don't have those people on my team, I am screwed. Right? And I'll forget tomorrow in 10 minutes. Right? And so, I love that, what you just said, because I've talked to a lot of coaches, and there are not very many out there that say what you just said. Hey, we follow up, we do this, we do that. And, and I love that. And that makes me want to, tell people to go check this out. See if this is right for you. Take the Kolbe. Everyone should take that Kolbe, because I have, I have such faith in this. Oh, and Jack, you wouldn't believe, my doctor, when you go into his doctor's office, everybody has their Kolbe on their desk.
Yeah.
And it's
everyone in our team members has it too. I know everyone's Kolbe, and we know our students Kolbe, and the same thing. Michelle has been part of Strategic Coach for 11 years. My wife, Michelle, and co-founder of our business, and the smarter one of the two of us. And she is she brought that to us, and we're like, and makes perfect sense. I'm a 6'4", 8'3", so it's again. So we realized that you need to meet people where they are and provide them with certain human interaction every once in a while, as often as possible, in order to make sure that they don't deviate, they don't go down the wrong path, and so on. Because in most programs that are like self-study in a way, even group coaching programs are self-study,
Yep.
It's easy to go down the wrong path and then hit a roadblock and then not get support. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, well, that doesn't work. And then you have a negative experience and so on and so forth. So that's why we are successful, because we take it seriously. If you want to do it the right way, it's a heavy load on our end. But then it's also worth it. Yeah.
It's so funny because as we're talking here, and I looked up, I wanted to make sure I had I know that I'm a 10 quick start, and as a 10 quick start, I couldn't remember all my other numbers. I just knew they were low. And so I pulled it up, and as I pulled it up, I've been looking to hire this person in a really key role in my organization. And I'm like, you just reminded me, Jack, why haven't I sent her the Kolbe? And so thank you for that, number one.
You're welcome.
And she's a badass. I just want to make sure she's the right badass for my team, right? And so I love that you thought this stuff through, because the success leaves patterns, right?
Mm-hmm.
And strategic coach, you can say whatever you want. Oh, I got this other coaching, I've done this another analysis. Dan Sullivan is one of the smartest guys I've ever met in my life. And every book that he has out, and he writes a new book like every 90 days or something like that. I'm just telling you, I get every single book. I read every book. I listen to it. I write down questions. And because the material is so good. And the people that have been through the strategic coach program, it's phenomenal. I mean, it's Elon Musk, right?
Did he go through it too? I didn't know.
I don't want to say that, but I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it could be that early on he did that. So like guys, if you're listening here, like the strategic coach is not necessarily for the beginner. Like it's not a program for a beginner. You got to have an established. They actually qualify you have an established 6-figure or even higher than that business already. But so the easy way to learn about what we just talked about is go look for Dan Sullivan books. They're all fantastic, and I love like 10x is easier than 2x. It's like
love it.
We early on we understood that in our land business when we were growing from 63 deals in our first year to 150 deal in the second year. We're like, we didn't even know about that concept yet, but intuitively we're like, how can we blow this up to doing 800 deals a year? And just by asking that question, different answers came up that were completely different than what we had before, because you can't incrementally grow you can double incrementally by just doing a few things different and working harder. But you cannot grow 10x that way. You got to change completely different things. But anyway, so we use some of these things obviously in our coaching program too, to make sure people understand.
And something that you said in the information that you sent over to kind of prepare me for the interview is you talked about blue ocean, which caught my attention because I'm a big blue ocean guy. And when I talk to my team, I say, I don't want to do Instagram reels that are red ocean. Like, I don't want to try to be better than whoever else is teaching people financial independence. I want to find that blue ocean thing and create the space for that. And I'm not saying we've done it, but we will do it. And I love what you just said, because, whether it's who, not how, anything else. So there's two things. Is you got to have systems for success. You have to have proof of concept, and everything that you're doing, the strategic coach stuff, the Kolbe stuff, analyzing, hey, we're going to tell you what you're good at. We're not going to just listen to you and say, hey, you know what I'm really good at? I'm really good at fact finding. I know I can't say that if somebody looks at my Kolbe, they're going to say, Jim, that's not true. You're lying to me. And so, but they can say, hey, when we need to create a vision, we need to create excitement on the team. Jim can do that, right? But we're not going to let him implement the plan. And that's good. Dan Sullivan says, he's a quick start 10, and so.
And he has a company with, I don't know how many thousands of students in there, but he brought the right people in, which is then the answer. Again, when we talk about land business, for when somebody comes in there, they have a profile like you, then the very first thing is like, okay, let's get this person surrounded with services or systems that do all the details for them. Because if it's up to the details, it'll never happen.
It'll never happen. I mean, but you know what, if you want to come up with an idea how to go from, like you said, 50, 60 deals a year to 700 or 7,000, I'm your guy. Right.
Right.
But in 37 years of experience of helping people become wealthy, like I have patterns of success too. I've seen people do some crazy big stuff, and I can say, you know what? Here's what we could do in this thing. And
Yeah.
so I really like that, Jack. I like that you and your wife are doing this together. That's awesome. That's a team. Someday you'll have to give me some relationship coaching, because that's an area of weakness for me. But in at 59, being a single guy in Florida, so we'll do that off air. We don't want to bore the audience or run them away. So
I don't know if I can give much advice there. It is challenging. Let's put it that way.
it is challenging. But so, Jack, how do people find you and find your system, and how do they learn a little bit about it? How do they reach out to you? Tell me that.
Yeah, so the simplest way that they can go to, obviously, I have a podcast too. It's called the Jack Bosch Show. It's purposely named like that because we talk about real estate, but also about entrepreneurship and other things. And then the simplest way to find out, particularly about the land strategy on how to get these pieces of land cheap, and how you can sell them, how you can cash flow from them, and so on, is by going to Land Profit Fun, like FUN, like having fun, like the Land Profit
Yeah.
Fund. If you go there, you can download a 30-day blueprint that gives you basically step-by-step 30-day instructions on how to set this up for yourself. And then from there, we also have obviously every once in a while we have some challenges and some things, but you'll find those out by just going to landprofits.com or going to my YouTube channel, Jack Bosch. You just Google Jack Bosch and so on, or go on YouTube, Jack Bosch, Instagram, Jack Bosch, Facebook, Jack Bosch. You'll find me all over the place.
Kind of sounds like a movie, like Jack Ryan, Jack Bosch. It could
I
be
know,
like
it's a good name.
movie.
I have to thank my
It's
parents for
great.
that.
All right, Jack, I got 2 questions for you before we wrap up. And I really encourage everybody to go check this out, because, Jack's not blowing smoke here. He's got the patterns and the success and the systems. And if you're a guy like me, you got to have that, right? You got to have those systems. And if you're an entrepreneur or you're a doctor thinking, how am I going to recreate my income, business owner, whatever you are, you can partner with somebody. I'm sure Jack has people that are interested in doing this too, and maybe they don't have the money, or maybe they need this, or maybe they need that visionary. That's what I love about collaboration. And who not how is really finding other people to do the things that aren't your unique ability. So Jack, 2 questions. One, what's the best advice anybody's ever given you?
That's a hard one, but you gave me a little heads up that this question is coming, so I had kind of be able to think about it a little bit. But first, I was like, "Holy cow, I have no idea." But I will go with something very, very simple, but it's very, very powerful, at least in my life. As an entrepreneur, you come across flaky people all the time. Come across people that say something, they don't do it, and so on and so forth. And so I learned that the number one most important thing that you can protect is your own reputation, and is your own word. So my best advice that I've ever gotten is from my dad. And he basically, when I was a teenager, I wanted to flake out a couple of compromise, a couple of commitments that I had made. And my dad simply said, "Did you agree to do this?" And I said, "Yes." "Are you in? Is there an emergency that prevents you from not doing it?" It's like, "No." "Then you go do this."
Yeah.
Right? Even though it felt much more fun to go to a party with my friends instead of going to do what I had committed to do, I was like, okay, you're right. I committed to doing that, and I did it. And you know what? That happened a few times. And every time he sat me down, and it became part of my DNA that if I say something, I'll do it. And if I commit to something, I'll do it. So today I use contracts and everything, but I don't use them because of me. Because I know I don't need a contract in something. I'm a handshake guy, because my word I will live or die. I will die over my word. Basically, if I give somebody my word, it will happen.
Yeah.
The world is not always like that, though. So therefore, I use contracts. But that's basically, and what that has done, it has given me in this industry. There's not a single person that knows that I haven't paid, that can claim that I screwed them, that I didn't pay them, that I didn't live up to my thing. So So as an example, when we bought this house that I'm in here, the seller was really hard to deal with. And because of our corporate finance, the lender needed more time to close on it. And I needed $1.5 million. It's our dream home. I needed $1.5 million short-term hard money loan in a matter of 3 days. I made one phone call and I had the $1.5 million 3 days later in my bank account. Why? Because they knew I'm not going to take the $1 million and go to Mexico. They knew that if I say something, I do something. So that entire reputation kind of piece is really behind that. And that came from my dad early on.
I love that. And, that reminds me, Jack, of the diamond business. In the diamond business, there are no contracts.
Right.
Everything is a handshake. And you might buy for hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars a box with diamonds in it. Right. And if you don't do what you say you're going to do, you're out.
Yeah.
It's a handshake. But nobody screws anybody because you're out, you're over, you're done. Somebody doesn't do what they say they're going to do, you don't do business with them again.
Exactly right.
And you know what? I'm kind of that way. I think emotionally we can be that way a lot too, because, there might be a contract, but if somebody doesn't live up to the contract or fights the contract or there's a lawsuit I've been in business 37 years. I've seen everything. And people, I just had somebody embezzle money from one of our companies. And she was really dumb using the company credit card for Botox and vet bills and stuff like that. So there are bad people out there. And guess what? That person's out and they'll never, ever be back in. And one of the things Dan Sullivan says in Strategic Coach is once you're out, you're out. There is no coming back.
That's exactly right.
And there are people that won't take accountability in Strategic Coach and they want out. And it doesn't happen very often, but when it does, I love those stories. All right. Last question, Jack, before we wrap up, is if God came down from heaven and allowed you to only retain the knowledge that you've received from one book, what would that book be?
Now that's a really hard one because I love reading and I've taken so many different things from so many different books, and that it's extremely hard. But I think one of the books that I mean, the easy pick, particularly in the real estate space, is many people have probably mentioned Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad. I won't mention that, even though it's on the top there because it changed my outlook on.
Yep.
It's changed my outlook on real estate, on how on business entrepreneurship and things like that. But I do want to take a book that I think is one of the top 5 business books I've ever read. And it's so easy read. Even my 16-year-old daughter read it and loved it. And she wants to read it again. And it's called Unreasonable Hospitality by Will Guidara. And it's basically the story of how Will Guidara and his business partner, they'd taken a middle of the road New York restaurant and made it to was voted number 1 best restaurant in the world. And they made that, and it's really not about the restaurants. It's about customer service. It's about entrepreneurship. It's about our corporate culture. It's about everything around business. You read that book, you're gonna laugh, you're gonna cry, it's a beautiful, beautiful book. It's super easy to read, so to the degree that even my 16-year-old's like, what a book, this is amazing. And she hates reading, let's put it that way. She doesn't like reading, but she loved that book. And it's just, you replace the word restaurant with business, and it's one of the best business books I've ever read.
I have a 16-year-old granddaughter that lives with me, and I'm going to make her read that book. Actually, I'll probably pay her to read it, but I have to bribe her. But she's driving around in a Jeep, so if she doesn't want to drive the Jeep, she doesn't have to read the book.
Right. So, well, you can have her audiobook it, but she's like, my daughter came to me, is like, hey, she's interested in business. She wants to join the family business over time, which I'm excited about. But she's like, do you have a good book for me to read? And it's like, yes, read this one. So she got it as an audiobook, and then I don't know, a week and a half later, she was done. And it's like, oh my God, that was such a good book. So yeah, awesome. I remember there's rarely a book that has every single page with highlights and things and dog ears and so on. But this book is full of them. It's just pure gold.
Love it. Love it. All right, Jack, thank you so much for being on the show. And thank you for that book, because you know what? I have not read that book, but that will be one I'm getting, because I love when somebody recommends a book I haven't read. And I read at least an hour a day. And so I go through a lot of books. And when I'm in the gym, I'm listening. And I go to the gym 5 days a week. I'm listening to books. may look like I'm listening to music, but I'm listening to books and learning while I'm working out.
Yes.
And look, I really love what you're doing. I would encourage everyone to go check it out. See if you're a right fit. Not everybody's a right fit for being an entrepreneur, but you know what? We got to stop being financial slaves. And this is the way that you do it, is you got to take action, just like Jack said in the very beginning. So Jack, thank you so much for being on here. Love to have you back and just talk a little bit about something else or getting deeper into certain entrepreneurship or something. All right, audience, we're going to wrap this up like we do every week with the incredible words of Earl Nightingale and the strangest secret. Take it away, Earl.
Here's the key to success and the key to failure. We become what we think about. Now let me say that again. We become what we think about.
Thanks for listening to the Breakaway Wealth Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to this show wherever you're listening so you never miss an episode. If you want to start increasing your wealth building ability right now, go to community.createtailwind.com to join our free online community and get access to free, in-depth training designed to help you build real, lasting wealth. See you next week.